Hi, I'm Sharon, and today we're talking Jesus on money, the bare truth about communism, and we're going to end with the real truth about universal basic income. With universal basic income, do we really end up with universal basic outcome? Let's find out. People who want communism and socialism have never lived under it. If you speak to a person who has lived under either communism or socialism or some combination thereof, it tends to be highly controlling and does not deliver on its promises. So let's get into it and discuss it. In communistic system or socialistic system, the state owns all the property and distributes equally. The idea is to make certain that each person has what they need and then to eliminate both extremes of poverty and excessive wealth. But is that goal ever really achieved? Not in my experience, not that I've ever lived under a communistic system, but I've had plenty of opportunities to observe from the perspective of the church interacting with people in the Soviet Union, of a teacher interacting with students in China, a friend interacting with friends in Venezuela. Things aren't as communist governments would like us to believe. Communism and socialism are based just as much on greed and covet as extreme capitalism. We will not solve the poverty issue without first changing human hearts. And one of the things that we need to realize right now is we are living in the end times. And simply the fact that we're living in the end times brings the economy to the forefront. We look in Matthew chapter 24, Luke chapter 21, and I think it's Mark chapter 15 or so. When Jesus talked about the end times, the word famine was mentioned. Famine is economic hardship. When we read the book of Revelation about the end times, we see that economic hardship is to be expected in the end times, and people are going to come up with various solutions, various ways of trying to eliminate poverty. But Jesus said, the poor you'll always have with you. So not that I want anyone to be poor, it's just that I happen to believe the words of Jesus over and above the words of anyone else. And I don't believe that poverty will ever be eliminated while we're living on this earth, no matter our levels of compassion, no matter our levels of mercy, no matter our levels of influence of trying to change systems. It is what it is because of human nature and Jesus Christ himself. When he rules from his throne in Jerusalem, he is the one who will solve it. In the meantime, we're dealing with it. And it's our responsibility as Christians to bring the kingdom of God to bear in various situations so that we can bring the gospel and mercy and provision. So let's talk for a minute about Cuba. I grew up mainly in South Florida, and I was in Fort Lauderdale, very close to Miami. I had a lot of Cuban friends who had escaped, or whose parents and grandparents had escaped from the communism of Castro. I remember talking to a gentleman who had escaped communism, and he told me, "I will never again wait in line for sugar." Well, why would anybody wait in line for sugar? See, sugar is a primary agricultural crop of Cuba. They grow plenty of sugar cane. They have it in abundance. Why would anybody have to wait in line for it? Why would it be rationed? It's because of communism. When you have a communistic system, you end up with rationing, because the people who are, well, let's say a lot of pencil pushers, get paid whether or not they produce, get paid whether or not they distribute. And there are people who go without. And we do find extremes of wealth and poverty in communistic systems. It's just a matter of who has it. Now let's spend a few minutes on the medical system of Cuba. I have friends who are involved in the underground church in Cuba. When I say underground, that doesn't mean they meet in the holes. They just kind of meet in secret, as the communist government in Cuba doesn't happen to like Christians. So these people and these house churches and these various small secret Christian communities kind of keep us abreast of what's going on. Several years ago, when COVID was going on, there was a young man with COVID, and he ended up in a hospital in Cuba. I think he was actually even in the city of Havana, where you would expect better hospitals. There was mold on the walls. That's right. In the COVID unit, where people have breathing difficulties, there was mold on the wall in the hospital. That's a communistic medical system for you. You say everybody's equal in communism? Absolutely. Everybody gets the same very poor medical care. I could say another word, but I won't. Another thing they're experiencing right now is blackouts, continuous power outages. The people never know when they're going to have electricity. One of the things that we did is we collected money to send a generator to a particular family so they could run their refrigerator and not have their meat spoil, because this island nation of Cuba, because of their communism, they can't figure out a way to produce enough electricity for their population. Do we see that in other island nations in the region? No. It's unique to this communistic country. So let's talk about the nation of Venezuela. When I went to Fort Lauderdale Christian School when I was a teenager, we had plenty of Venezuelans in the school, and most of their parents were involved in the oil trade. They were nice people who had great lives. They were great friends, and I enjoyed going to school with them. They had good lives in Venezuela. They were not running to the United States to immigrate. They weren't crossing our borders illegally. But when Maduro took over and brought that nation into communism, the people began to starve. I've heard stories of married women having to prostitute themselves to have enough money to feed their children. Venezuela is a naturally wealthy nation because of their oil. Under communism, the nation went completely broke, and the people have nothing. Okay, now let's talk about Korea. Here we see South Korea. Then we have this curvy line, and here's North Korea. This bright spot you see here is Seoul. That's the capital of South Korea. And then North Korea is virtually in the dark. And about here where these lights begin, this is China. On this map, it would be this red line. So this area is China. The terrain is about the same, very mountainous with some tropical green areas. The terrain is about the same, but it's just that the extreme communism of North Korea has put the people into extreme poverty. I've heard stories of people having to eat their children because they've had nothing else. I've spoken to missionaries who work just south of the 38th parallel. And on this map, it's here on this red line. And it's their responsibility to receive in those who have escaped from North Korea. And what was reported to me is that the people are so starved and so emaciated. Their digestive systems are so unaccustomed to food that for the first several weeks, the people have to be on basically vegetable broth, and they have to introduce food very slowly so the people's digestive systems won't go into shock from solid food. For many of them, it's an entire 6 weeks before they're even able to introduce meat into the diets of these starving, emaciated people. That's communism. That's what's happening in North Korea. And when you see those parades, the people are basically forced and brainwashed into worshiping their emperor. Okay, now we have China. This is the beautiful city of Shanghai. When I was a teacher for a company that employed teachers to teach children in China online, I had interactions with families and children. This is Korea, by the way, all the way from like the deserts of Mongolia to the south in the Hong Kong area. And I think Shanghai is over here, Shanghai, and then all the way to the mountains of Tibet. I've interacted with families and children all over China. It's been communist since about the 1940s. And so it's had time for the economy to settle out, and we should pretty much expect to see equality. There is not economic equality in China. In the children that I taught, I saw great disparities in income. I could tell who lived in a high-rise apartment, who lived in a shack with barely any internet. There was a young lady in Hong Kong that I taught who sat in a gold-plated chair. And then people in various other areas of the country who did not have that kind of wealth. There were great disparities of income, and communism is supposed to solve that. It does not. It doesn't do anything for the economic system. Now let's talk about Hungary. In the early 1980s, maybe late 1970s, my family and our church had a great deal of contact with the underground church in Hungary during the time that it was under the control of the USSR. And the people that we had contact with, you can find them now in Budapest. It's Sandor and Judith Nemeth of Faith Church. It started in a basement with just a few university students, and then it grew and grew, and they prayed their way to freedom. One of the things that Sandor told us is when he was about 8 years old, he remembered the communist tanks coming through Hungary and taking over his city, I believe it was Budapest. And starting shortly after that time, about once or twice a year, a truck would come down the street and dump piles of shoes every 2 blocks. And the people who lived in the apartments, the people in the neighborhood, were supposed to come outside and dig through the shoes and hope to find their size. And that was their communistic way of making certain everyone had shoes. Okay. Socialist medical care. Our church helped pay for some of our friends from Hungary to have their dental work taken care of, because it certainly was not being done where they lived. And in their stores in Hungary, they didn't have adequate amount of goods for the people to buy the common things that we take for granted. Down the street from us, there was a store called Jefferson's Department Store. It was basically something along the lines of Kmart. And when Sandor and Judith Nemeth learned about Jefferson's Department Store when they came to stay with us, they would walk there every day and buy loads and loads of goods and come back home, walk home the 2-mile walk with their arms filled with these bags to the point that they could hardly walk. Well, let me just back up and explain. So my dad, Jim Croft, had been to Hungary a few times to help this church get on its feet and bring in some fresh teaching and just assist them as churches in the West should assist churches in difficult situations. And then Sandor and Judith applied for a visa to come to the United States, and it was granted. What we think really happened is that the communist government was hoping that Sandor and Judith would defect to the United States and kind of abandon their church in Hungary. But no, that's not what happened. They didn't abandon it, and it grew, and you can find it online, Faith Church in Budapest, Hungary, which is now a free nation thanks to the prayers of Sandor and Judith and thousands of people like them. But they can tell you, under communism, they did not have financial freedom. They did not have economic freedom. They did not have what they needed. So let's go to the next one. Let's go to Poland. Poland is a very special case. I remember when my sister and Runghild and Leisha and some others were working at a mission in West Germany. They would take items into Poland. At least people on this mission would take items into Poland. And you might think people in communist nations would be asking for Bibles, because certainly they had everything else they needed. That wasn't exactly the case. They did want Bibles, but they also asked for things like shampoo, toothpaste and toothbrushes, feminine hygiene products, and bras. The Polish government had some idea that all women are the same size. And in their department stores in Poland, under the communist government, bras only came in one size. There was a particularly slender woman who smuggled in bras by wearing several of them, starting with the smallest size and going to the largest size, and she got by with it. But people were asking for shampoo, toothpaste, feminine hygiene products, and bras because they couldn't get them in Poland. It's like under communism, there's not enough creativity for people to produce things and get them to market. There were issues with the producers and the vendors not having a middleman, not having a way to get things to market because the government didn't think about truckers. It was just a very, very bad situation. Now, Poland has freedom, thank God, but anybody who thinks that communism works hasn't lived under it. Okay, now let's talk about Romania. In Romania, there were some very serious issues. I don't remember the name of the leader, but he believed that Romania needed to produce more factory workers. So he basically eliminated the people's ability to use conception prevention types of birth control. So they would have high numbers of children to produce factory workers. And that, by that same token, he basically shut down the farms. When you have a high population and no farms, the people are hungry. The people of Romania were very, very hungry. They were starving. They had problems with excessive alcoholism and drug abuse. There were children living in filth. I've talked to people who adopted children out of Romania when it was under the authority of that dictator. It was a horrid situation. People living in absolute squalor and hungry because of overpopulation and cessation of farming. So let's take a few minutes to talk about the truth, the real truth about universal basic income. Lately, this term has been thrown around as if it's the solution, the panacea for all economic problems. Universal basic income will not solve the problem of poverty because it can't change human nature. It will not eliminate greed or covet or jealousy. And who will control how it's spent? Who will control how people utilize their universal basic income? Equal income does not guarantee equal outcome because we have human nature that's in the way. So let's take this example from Luke 19, the parable of the 10 talents. We're going to look at this one very carefully because this one differs slightly from the other tellings of this parable because Jesus had more than one way of telling the same story or telling similar stories. So Jesus went on to tell a parable. So he said, a nobleman went to a distant country to receive a kingdom for himself and then return. And he called 10 of his slaves and gave them 10 minas, or 10 amounts of money. He said to them, do business with this until I come back. When he returned, he called them so he might know what business they had done. The first appeared, saying, Master, your mina has earned 10 minas more. He said to him, well done, good slave. Because you have been faithful in a very little thing, you are able to be in authority over 10 cities. The second came, saying, your mina, master, has made 5 minas. He said to him also, you are to be over 5 cities. Another came, saying, Master, here is your mina, which I kept put away in a handkerchief. For I was afraid of you, because you are an exacting man. You take up what you did not lay down and reap what you did not sow. He said to him, by your own words I will judge you, you worthless slave. Did you know that I'm an exacting man, taking up what I did not lay down and reaping what I did not sow? Why then did you not put my money in the bank? Having come, I would have collected with interest. Then he said to the bystanders, take the mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10 minas. And they said to him, Master, he has 10 minas already. I tell you, to everyone who has, more shall be given, but from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. In the other versions of this story, Jesus gave 10 to one person, 5 to another person, and 1 to the final person based on their abilities. In this one, the master is giving equal to everyone. We see 10 slaves, 10 minas, 10 people given the exact same amount. But what they do with it is different. These guys had universal basic income. What they did was was completely different. And then when Jesus came, when the master came, he redistributed the remainder based on the stewardship of the people. Right here, when he said, take the mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10 minas, Jesus is saying in his economy, he wants to give whatever to those who are the best stewards. We all start out with the same amount of time, with the same amount of whatever, same amount of opportunities. If we have time, we have opportunity. And when God said, take the mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10, take it away from the poor steward and give it to the good steward, people were saying, Master, but he has 10 already. People were saying, that's not fair. In God's economy, if you're a poor steward, you are highly likely to lose what you have, and somehow that wealth will be reshuffled to people who are better stewards. God redistributes wealth based on stewardship. If that offends you, the problem is with you. It's not with God. Now, what is the wealthy person supposed to do? If you have extra, what are you supposed to do? What's your responsibility? Giving to the poor is not God's responsibility. It's not the government's responsibility. It's your responsibility. In Matthew chapter 6, Jesus said, so when you give to the poor, not if, it's when. He said, when you pray, when you fast, when you give to the poor. It's something that's a natural part of your Christian life. Now, I how you do it and how much you do it and which of the poor qualify for your giving, that those are all things that are up to be sorted out, and there are biblical principles in sorting them out. But this is a responsibility that God did not lay on the government to tax some people heavily and give that money to somebody else. So let's take a look at Matthew chapter 19. When Jesus was speaking to the rich young ruler, he said, "If you wish to be complete, go and sell your possessions, give them to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me." But when the young man heard this statement, he went away grieving, for he was one who owned much property. Let's go to the previous one. So then he said to the bystanders, "Take the mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10 minas." They said to him, "Master, he has 10 minas already." If you asked any of these people, any of these bystanders, to give of their possessions to the guy who just squandered or didn't use what the Lord had given him, would they do it? And we don't hear in this parable about them volunteering to give from their own substance or their own wealth, but they're more willing for this bad steward to keep what he has rather than give it to someone who will use it wisely. So here we are landing on Matthew 13, which wasn't something that I planned to be here, but it just happened to be a slide that I prepared for something I was going to do in the future. But I think this fits, so we'll discuss it. Now, when Jesus heard about John, he withdrew from there in a boat to a secluded place by himself. And when the people heard of this, they followed him on foot from the cities. When he went ashore, he saw a large crowd and felt compassion for them and healed their sick. Now, just before this scene, Jesus had sent out the disciples to heal the sick, cast out demons, and preach the gospel. They were given authority to do all kinds of miracles. So when they were gathered in this place and Jesus preached to them and healed them, let's see what happened next. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This place is desolate and the hour is already late. So send the crowds away so they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus said to them, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." Within that command, "you give them something to eat," is the ability to perform it. Jesus had given them the ability to do miracles, to cast out demons, to heal the sick, to preach the gospel, raise the dead, and solve all kinds of problems. They had within them the ability to end this localized temporary poverty. They had the ability to do a miracle. If we think back to the story of Abraham on the Day of Atonement, Abraham on the Day of Atonement is the day that we celebrate the fact that Abraham was willing to offer up his son And God provided a substitute. When Abraham and Isaac went up that mountain, Abraham went knowing that he was going to lay his only son on the altar, the son that God had promised him. And when he did so and raised the knife, he heard the voice of the angel saying, "Stop, don't hurt the boy, don't hurt the lad." God provided a substitute, and he looked and he saw the ram caught in a thorn bush, and Abraham took that ram and sacrificed it. That's the first time that we see God as Jehovah Jireh, when God was providing something because someone was willing to make a sacrifice. When God says, "You give them something to eat," when you are willing to make that sacrifice out of your own pocket to help someone in need, you can trust that God, Jehovah Jireh, will come in with a substitute, and that he will do a miracle like he did at the feeding of the 5,000 or the 4,000, where thousands of people were fed, thousands of men, women, and children were fed with just a little bit. And then there were baskets full of food left over. We are at the end times. This is the end of the book. Universal basic income will not produce universal basic outcome. Equal incomes do not produce equal outcomes. It's up to us as Christians to daily demonstrate the gospel in this crazy, messed up world. The King is coming. When King Jesus calls you to account for your stewardship, what answer will you give him? God bless you. Have a great night. And if this is the kind of thing you like, if this has been of any benefit to you, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless you. Good night.